Hi, Gay. Happy Pride Month. We've come from a utopian future to talk to you about car insurance.
Have you
Happy Pride Month to everybody but you, Ari, considering I cut you off.
I said, have you checked your car's gay extended warranty? But if you
Oh, that would have been beautiful. Oh my god.
no, we try our best. It's fine. I just didn't get the punchline. It's fine.
I'm always like, put in the quip and then go. Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Restitching the Tapestry. It has been a while since we've seen you. We've had a 2-week break, and it was kind of a much needed break. Ari went on vacation. I kind of just retreated to the garden as a nymph for a couple of weeks, and it's been kind of nice.
I
And
reached enlightenment.
Ari reached enlightenment. It's Pride Month. If I feel like we blinked our eyes, and it's Pride Month already. Do
I
you feel
know.
that
I,
way?
I came back and I was like, every I went away for a while and like took time for myself and went on this meditation retreat. I come back and like everything is happening and David Lynch is dropping like an album and I'm like, what the fuck is happening?
You
Where's
you
the
emerged from your meditative stupor to rainbows and gay things.
no.
Oh, what a great way to come back, right?
No, I feel great. I feel like cloud nine. Cloud nine, guys.
Godzilla Karu is here. It's good to see you. Hope you've been doing well. So Ari, how have you been? What have you been up to?
Oh man, I've been on a meditation, like I said, meditation retreat. I had it was an experience. Like I can't even like say everything in words of what I experienced. It was it was magical. Um I definitely saw rainbows and I thought about you.
Oh,
I, I was just
what a
like I was
compliment.
just like I wish Dottie were you can see rainbows. I said I wish everybody could learn transcendental meditation because it's like there's there's something about Fairfield, Iowa that when you get there, it's just like a whole other universe. It's just like the place is just so it there's like a calm that just kind of like settles over you when you get there. And like it's just so quiet. Like there's no like you kind of become aware that there's just like no road traffic like noise, like no highway noise, no noise. It's just like really quiet in a way that
Mm-hmm.
you just you just don't get anywhere else. Like there's just always
Mm.
like there's no construction noise. There's no road traffic noise. It's just quiet. Really, really quiet.
Interesting.
So like,
That sounds really comforting.
well, and I got there and I sat under a tree and all of a sudden I saw like animals, like all kinds of animals just like coming out of nowhere. Like deer were walking around, like just chilling out in the middle of like in the middle of like the the public, like the square. And like
Hmm.
rabbits were coming out and like birds were flying and it was like it's like this. Have you ever watched Big Fish?
Yes, I have.
You know when he goes to the town and there's like the grass in the center of the town and stuff, and it's like this magical place where he's like walk everybody walks without their shoes on and stuff.
Yeah.
Fairfield is kind of like that. It's like this magical place of like just
A
nothing.
little paradise.
It's a little paradise. It's a little paradise. It's so hard to explain unless you've been there. It's just like nothing. It seems like nothing bad could ever happen there.
Oh my goodness. That does sound kind of beautiful. I mean, I know sometimes when I go up north, like to my family's place, I kind of experience that escapism, like regarding just like how quiet nature is compared to the just complete hecticness of day-to-day life, living
Yeah.
and we don't live in big cities by any stretch of the imagination, but even living where we live, the hustle and bustle is still kind of taxing compared to that like
Yeah.
rural just escape. Ooh.
Mhm. It's nice. How about you? What have
So
you been up to?
well, I mentioned a little bit ago that I've been doing a lot of gardening. I have given away most of my tomatoes, so I still have about 30 tomato plants left.
You have so many tomatoes.
So many tomatoes. And beyond that, so I've been doing a lot of stuff with PFLAG. So I think I mentioned to everybody that I am on PFLAG Great Lakes Bay Region. Today, we were invited, along with a bunch of other PFLAG chapters, to meet with Attorney General Dana Nessel of the state of Michigan, which was a really, really cool experience. We got to sit down and talk about LGBTQ plus issues, things that we're worried about. Um, and I think considering it's Pride Month, it was very fitting talking about those things because PFLAG, for those of you who are unaware, basically is an organization that's intended to promote, um, let's just say, like education, advocacy,
Yeah.
awareness, and support for the LGBTQ plus community and allies in the community as well. So it was really rewarding. It was really
I love
surreal to
it.
meet someone of that magnitude. Like, I don't think have I ever met like a state level politician? I don't think I have.
You've
Maybe?
met some really important people before. Like you've done some pretty strong advocacy for like bullying before. Haven't you been like interviewed by like Good Morning America before?
Uh, it's about like this was back in 2012 when that big bullying thing happened in my hometown. And I was interviewed by a number of different news organizations. It was kind of wild. It was very surreal. I
Mhm.
had them showing up at my work. Like, and I was like, ooh, I don't know if I like being in the limelight this much. It was a little uncomfortable. But no, it was a very important thing though, obviously, considering the subject matter. Like bullying is never acceptable in any context. So
Yeah.
um but no, it was an interesting experience and I'm glad I got to do it. So it feels good to be doing some new things of that caliber.
Yeah. And
Beyond that though, not been up to much. Just kind of just been enjoying some downtime. Just some downtime.
have you been doing any writing?
Here and there, nothing like super extensive.
Yeah.
Actually I've been doing a lot of comic book writing. Like I have like 3 or 4 proposals or pitches for comic books that I'm going to be sending in to see
Mhm.
if like maybe something happens. I don't know. We'll see.
Maybe.
Well, I had an editor be like, well, if you have pitches, just send them our way, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh, well, well, if I get an invitation, I'm not going to say no to that.
Absolutely.
So, current event snapshots. What's been going on? Honestly, the big thing that's happened off the top of my head over the last um,
Two
2 to 3 weeks
Yeah.
is that Trump was ruled guilty by a jury for 34 counts of in the hush money case, essentially.
It was wild how I found out. So
How did you find out?
I was on a tech detox, so I had my phone off. So I didn't really I wasn't really like paying attention to the news, like kind of just like total blackout. So it was breakfast one morning and I was just like sitting at the table and all of a sudden one of the fellow meditators comes in and like slams down a paper and it just is a picture of Trump and giant block letters that say guilty. And I was just like, and he said, I didn't say a word. Those farmers looked like they were ready to fight me. And I said, I wouldn't say a word either.
Oh no.
Because he biked down to the local gas station to get a newspaper. And I said, I wouldn't have said a word. But like apparently
Oh.
they were like vandalizing I was looking on Reddit and like they were vandalizing newspapers and like magazines and stuff that had information about it because they didn't want that information. And so I saw like people riding around with like Trump 2024. Like I saw a Jeep today that had Trump 2024 on the side of their Jeep, and like people like riding around like with like stuff in my hometown, like pro Trump stuff. And like even though he's been convicted, they're kind of just like it doesn't really affect the fact that he can get elected. But there was a news report today that said even though he can still run for election, he apparently can't own a gun anymore because he's a convicted felon.
Yes, I did hear about that too. Oh, I see we have a few people coming in. So Godzilla Kairu says, had some stuff happen in February, but other than that, I've been fine. Been trying to write on more official original stories. Okay, that's cool. Good. Godzilla Kairu also says, I've been going on my own escapism camp on the weekends with my parents. Camping can
Ooh,
definitely be
fun.
escapism, yeah. Arby's here. It's good to
Hi,
see you.
Arby.
Rogue Agent, Killer Rodan, it's good to see
Hello,
you.
Rogue Agent.
We're doing okay. I hope that you're doing okay. And if not, I hope things get better. I definitely hope things get better. I can't think of any other current event snapshots off the top of my head. I think that pretty.
They're attempting to put forward a ceasefire in Israel Hamas because that's what I did for most of my. Because now I set like intentions when I meditate, and one of my intentions is a ceasefire in Israel, like Palestine or
Oh,
Israel
good.
Hamas.
Yes.
I'm always like peace. I want to meditate for peace now. So
That's a good way to manifest it, I think, right?
yeah.
Absolutely. RP says I'm excited about Adam Lambert's new extended play. Yes, I am too. I'm pretty excited. I've heard a couple of the songs and they're pretty good.
Mhm.
They are pretty good. So, but yeah, like beyond those things, like I've been kind of, I don't know if you want to say I've been doing a media detox, but I've been kind of doing a media detox of my own. I just, I don't know, like, I guess I have the luxury and privilege of just not really being, um, deep involved in the news right now, mostly because, I mean, there's just so much stuff going on.
Yeah.
And being that it's an election year, like that also adds like a whole nother layer of complication. I'm sorry about that, Rogue Agent. Well, are we ready for the mission statement? I do believe it's your turn.
My turn. Okay. Here we go. We live in a dynamic society where social media shapes us by creating greater opportunities for connection. It has led to a developing understanding of the adversity many marginalized communities face, the powers causing the adversity, and those who act as bystanders as atrocities take place in real time. Our goal with this show is to make connections and have challenging conversations about social topics, current events, pop culture, and art. Together, let's weave the threads of understanding with what privilege we have in order to learn, educate, and create in a world that's growing.
Yes, absolutely. Love it. Oh my god, so our RP's like, Donnie is rocking the Pride shirt. That's because, it is actually Pride Month. Woo! And Rogue Agent, I'm sorry that you experienced that. Oh my goodness. So I know that we're still kind of processing that it's Pride Month already. So where is your head at? Like where are we at with Pride Month? It's already June 6th. Have you done any celebrating?
I have not done any celebrating. I can't even believe it's Pride Month because I haven't really seen a whole lot of Pride Month stuff. It's sort of like it just kind of snuck up on me, and I missed my local Pride parade, like Pride rally in my hometown because I was
Mm-hmm.
gone. And so I just haven't seen like a whole lot of Pride, like a whole lot of celebrating, a whole lot of people talking about it. I didn't even see
Yeah.
like anyone talking about like Target or Walmart merch this year. Like, is there
That's
a whole lot of
because there
merch?
really isn't any.
Really?
So, okay, it's cool, interesting that you mentioned this. So Britt and I went to Target and Meijer like this
Yeah.
past week to see, like, just I think we did some general shopping, but we also wanted to check out their Pride merchandise, and neither of our local locations had anything.
Interesting.
No section, nothing. Unless for some reason it may have been dispersed throughout the store or something like that. I'm not sure. I don't know if many of you remember this, but last year, um,
Big
Target,
controversy.
yeah, like Target, Meyer, and a number of other places, Walmart, I think, also they all received like a huge amount of backlash from a lot of anti-LGBTQ plus people about having any sort of Pride merchandise. And of course, most of these arguments were made to suggest that in some way Pride merchandise was a threat to children. And I think going back, I mean, we've had so many conversations on this show about performative pride, but I think the fact that these, huge retailers have just made the decision to, like, almost completely, if not all, axe their pride merchandise, that speaks very loudly and just proves their performative allyship, right? And it really frustrates me. I know, like, I was, after going through Target and Meijer, I was like really down about it. I was like, are we really at this point where there's going to be like pushback from like very loud voices? I would argue that the majority of people don't care. Like they don't care. Like let people have pride, but there is a select few who are loud. And those are the only voices that seem to be centralized at any point. What are your thoughts?
So do you think we're just not going to celebrate Pride anymore? Like this is just not a thing that we're doing, or it's just like
So I
it's just not.
think I think Pride will still be celebrated. I don't think it's going to be commercialized like it has been.
Mhm.
Like, cause there's still Pride events. There's still going to be gatherings, celebrations, but like if you just go into some of these retailers, like there's just zero representation of Pride. Now, don't get me wrong. I do have my qualms with regard to like capitalism and kind of using Pride as a way to target consumers and everything like that. But at the end of the day, some representation is better than no representation.
Yeah.
Like if it's a T-shirt with "out and proud" on it, that's at least something. That's something. And it seems that now we're not getting that in a lot of contexts. So, let's see. Rogue Agent says there was a comic where there was a main character who was gay. Ooh, really? I need to check that out. Um, RP says I got a Pride lanyard from my college's bookstore. But RP does say that Walmart I work at does have Pride stuff. Okay, that's
Yeah, I
cool.
saw an Marilyn Reed video where she was showing Pride stuff on her channel. I saw like a video where people were talking about the Pride stuff that she was showing on her channel. She had done like a haul or something.
Maybe it could just be limited to my area. But I have seen some discourse around from other people beyond the area about like either not maybe like even if there's like Pride stuff, like the Pride stuff has been significantly scaled back and simplified. There's like there's very little diversity in what people have access to in some areas. So
I haven't seen a whole lot of Pride. I haven't really seen any Pride stuff, and I haven't seen anybody really talking about Pride online. Like it's just it's sort of like it's just not there. Like I just haven't seen like it's just not around. And it's just like I'm not sure if I'm just on the wrong side of YouTube or something, or I'm just not seeing
mhm,
that content, but I'm just not seeing like where's the gay content? Where's my gay content?
right. No, I feel you. I've not seen a lot of Pride discussion either. I mean, I know that there are celebrations taking place, but like I don't know how busy those celebrations will be. Like so kind of branching onward, like I know that this time of year somehow I always stumble into getting into arguments with bigots on social media because I've not learned my lesson, and I have apparently this self-loathing that demands that I respond to people in Facebook comment sections under news articles. What is wrong with me?
Gay mode activate.
I turn into like this gay Power Ranger, ready to fight off the bigoted Rita Repulsas of the world.
In the name of the moon, I vanquish you.
Or I guess Sailor Moon. That sounds more like a. Am I a Sailor Scout? Oh, or
Who is the most gay icon, if not Sailor Moon?
that is true. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. Mm. But well, so like I've been Rogue says I've made Disney videos defending the gays in Disney. I love that. Um, but no, like, so I've been, of course, like, people are like, why isn't there straight pride? Straight pride. It's like, come, you literally have every month of the year to have straight pride. Like, you
It's the
literally
same
have,
every year. It's like they have like this little trinket box of like things that they say every year, and they just like pull it out like this horrible like Queen Mab tablet of like
like a
terrible things.
Rolodex. It's like a Rolodex of what bigot thing should I say and associated with this particular day.
They just like blow it up, open it up. Why isn't there straight pride?
No, it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. So, like, I've been, of course, getting into fights with those people, but I think a lot of the issue is that people only see pride represented in media. And usually the media doesn't represent pride very well. And interestingly, I found like this really cool graphic that kind of like illustrates why pride is so important. So I figured it might be really cool for us to talk about it because I thought it was kind of cool. So this is the graphic. We're going to keep it up on the screen here. So obviously, people largely think that pride is just like a smattering of rainbow decor and just parades and stuff like that, but it honestly is way, 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 way more. Obviously, there is celebration, but like if you look at this lower pie chart on this graphic, it kind of divides everything up into all of the different things that pride encompasses, many of which, you know, are some things you might relate with, other things might be new to you. You're like, oh, okay, I didn't realize that. So obviously, pride is about celebrating. It's
Being valid
about.
in the closet to stay safe. I think for the longest time I was an egg, which
Mm-hmm.
is the term, if you don't know, for being non-binary or trans, but being in the closet or like where you're forming your identity, but you're just not quite there yet. And so for years I didn't have the words to um quantify what it meant to be non-binary, what I felt about my identity. I
Mm-hmm.
had all of these opinions about what non-binary meant because I didn't quite feel like a woman. I sometimes I suppose I have I let people call me woman because they have this idea, this construct of what I look like on the outside, and that I have female parts, so people, I go by she. I let people call me she, and I don't get offended by that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but um, there's this sensation that I'm not quite a woman. That there's something about me that doesn't quite fit the female formula. Sort of like sliding scale, and that I don't always quite feel on that scale of femininity or womanhood, and that I
Mm-hmm.
just never quite reached that level of womanhood that say like because it's just like I never quite mastered makeup and I never quite mastered looking good in a dress that or just that it never felt comfortable to me in the same way that other women seem to hold themselves in femininity. And
Right.
I never and I didn't quite feel masculine either because I would do performative masculinity, and I just never quite felt comfortable in masculinity either. It was always like somewhere on that variant. And so non-binary just seemed, when I finally had the words for it, I was like, yeah, I'm just outside
Mm-hmm.
of whatever. I'm somewhere in the middle, somewhere in this gooky mess.
Well, and see, I think it's important. First, I'm glad that you illustrated that because I think that's an excellent example to showcase why it is important to allow people the time to develop their understanding of themselves. And I think that's one big issue that a lot of bigots have is that they get so upset over new words, new terms, new concepts. And the truth is, a huge part of coming out is learning how to describe who you are to yourself, first and foremost,
Yeah.
right? And I don't think, like, yeah, there might be things you don't understand, but it's not your job to understand a person's coming out experience or their identity. What is your job is how you choose to support and uplift that person
Well, and some
during their
people don't come out
process.
until, like, they're even older than I am. I didn't come out until I was in my 30s. Some people don't come out until, like, they're in their 60s or 70s. Some people
Mm-hmm.
come out way later. They
Yeah,
spent their whole lives in the closet because they didn't feel safe coming out. They did performative marriages and had children and all sorts of things, and they wait until they're old.
right. No, it's absolutely true. So, thank you, thank you, Arpy. And okay, Rogue Agent, you have a good rest of your night if you have to leave. Going back to our graphic, boring everyday life as your authentic self. Oh my, okay, so let's talk about that. What I love about people who are very hypercritical of the LGBTQ plus experience is they think that we are just riding around on a unicorn, wearing gay tapestries draped on, like they think that we are embellishing this, like, this, and some people are, which is totally fine, but like there clearly is like this inflated notion that we are not everyday people, that we are somehow like, homo gnomes springing in the garden and just
Or that there's a sense of, like, over sexualization with gay people, that there's a sense that, like, we're going out to the club every night and meeting hooking up with strangers and having, like, lots of, like, or that we that gay men go to, like, bathrooms to, like, have sex or something, or like that
right,
they're doing, like, or that they're pedophiles or things, like things like that, or that, like, non-binary people are doing it just to feel, like, special, or that, like, bisexuals can't choose, like, they don't want to pick, so they're just going to sleep with everybody. Is that it's that othering that, like, or that we just don't have, like, a sense of, like, normalcy or, like, responsibility, or that we don't pay bills, or that we're not, like, fiscally responsible, or that we don't have, like, real lives, and that we're real people.
right. Okay, I'm taking this off because it's driving me nuts now because it's not sitting straight. What is going on? But no, like I think that's an excellent point that you made because the truth is, um, we're literally just human beings. And the thing is, there are people who do enjoy going out, who do enjoy, you know, those different aspects of our community, and that's what Pride is about. Pride is about acknowledging, you know, the fact that we are also celebrating sexual identity, we're celebrating gender identity, and there are such diverse ways that it's celebrated, so long as it's, safe, consensual, as long as it's, two adults, of course. But of course that gets conflated with like these media representations and like this fear mongering that we see perpetuated by these very powerful voices. I want to check out the comments.
But
Oh,
it's the same with straight people. Straight people have people who are sexual, and you have people who are not sexual, and that's the thing, is that everybody lives their everyday lives, and that's the thing, that there's a wide variety within our community, that you have people who are sexual and you have people who are not sexual, and
hmm,
that's the thing.
and both could coexist, right?
Right.
Um, Having community, like obviously that's important. Feeling free, loving yourself more than needing to be loved by others. Like that's such an important part of it. Like pride is I mean, yeah, it's a celebration of our community, but it's a celebration of self-actualization. It's a celebration of, who we were versus who we are now. Um, Going further. It is acknowledging that we have survived really hard shit. Like, we all have different stories. Like, you'll probably notice that a lot of Pride events will do, like, storytelling or poetry events where people, like, get up and share their coming out stories or share, their perspectives on how they've navigated various things. Like, it carves out a space and a time for people in our community to actually reflect on what we've been through, reflect on who we've become, and to provide empowerment for others who might be at different points of that process, right?
But one of the hard things that the communities had to deal with, just as an aside, is the reason why we don't have a lot of like old gay people is because a lot of them were wiped out by the AIDS epidemic. And
Mm-hmm.
that was one of the hard things that we sometimes glaze over in our community. And that's why we're so big on being safe sexually, is that we were so hard hit by this epidemic, and so many people like Reagan and the administration
Mm-hmm.
didn't take care of our community. We had to take care of ourselves, and we had to take care of our own. And I mean, we had the AIDS quilt because people, like, we were remembering so many people who were lost in the community. And
Mm-hmm.
that's part of our history, that we had that whole generational trauma of, you know losing people daily within our community as part of that history of who we were. And it's not our generation, millennials, it's the generation that came before us. um and so that's why we don't have, there's a whole generation that almost got lost. um
Yeah.
and it's and that's why it's so important to have those stories of our elders, because the ones that survived are tough as nails. They're so tough. And
And
they
well, we can't gloss over those stories. Like, I know, like, there are a lot of, I know there's a lot of millennials, Gen Zers who are very quick to gloss over those stories. And, like, I know there may be aspects of it, maybe like it's so dark that you don't want to listen to it or you don't want to hear it. But we wouldn't be where we are today without those stories. We wouldn't be here today without reflecting on those who came before us. So let's see other things. It's still about rainbows. Like, we can still celebrate rainbows, right? Um, being accepted and respected as ourselves. Okay. Gender euphoria. Ari, what's gender euphoria? Talk about that for a
it's what I
second.
experienced the other day. I got my passport and it had an X on it, and I was very excited. It's the wonderful feeling that you get when people do things right for you.
So, what does that represent? Tell everybody about that a little bit.
What gender euphoria represents is just like a feeling of being validated, either systematically, institutionally, or just by the people around you when they use your proper pronouns, or when they, like, or when you go to the store and they have a non-binary clothing section, like Old Navy
Hmm.
has. It's like that it's sort of like an awareness of that, there's existence of that you exist.
And that gesture of of that representation on your passport, while to other people may seem like something small, to somebody in our community, that is significant. That's
It is.
huge.
Hmm.
That's huge. Um, protecting trans youth, especially right now. I mean, considering like there's still a lot of states with a lot of anti-LGBTQ plus legislation aimed at trans youth specifically. Fighting for equal rights. Okay. Continue, like, kind of going back to what we just said, honoring those who've paved the way, especially Black trans elders who were very
Marsha.
central. Marsha, like, who were very central in, you know, the LGBTQ civil rights movement, like,
Hmm.
largely facilitating that. Feeling at home in yourself. Oh my God, that's kind of like that string of words is kind of trippy to see for me. Feeling at home in yourself. And the thing is, I don't think a lot of people outside of the community always are aware of the fact that, especially for the trans and non-binary communities, like feeling home in yourself is central to living a fulfilled life, you know? And if you
I
don't
think
get that, it can be dangerous.
I think that's why there is no such thing as straight pride, because straight people don't have to deal with the fact of like not feeling uncomfortable in their identity, or feeling that sense of other because of their sexuality. Like, they can go in their day-to-day life and they get affirmed with so many things all the time. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the world basically like caters to them in so many ways, as far as like their identity, their gender identity, or their sexuality, or a lot of different things. It sets it up that they're just taken care of, and and they don't even realize it, because it's just something that's not, it's just sort of like a given. And
Yeah.
so they don't realize it until there's representation for other groups, and then they're triggered by that. But like, why does it have to be all about representation? And so it's almost like when it's like even any representation is like, it's an affront to them. Like,
Yeah.
it's taking away from what they feel comfortable with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. What I find really frustrating is that, well, prefacing this first, like pride exists because our community has had to fight to simply be visible, to simply exist. The majority of cis heterosexual people have not had that type of fight to deal with, right? And and I've had some very strange arguments with people over the years where people have gotten so angry that they aren't essentially cornering the market on on being discriminated against. Like, I know, like I had one, and I think I've shared this on the episode on the show before, but I had one friend get upset at me in the past, and I literally, like, this lost a friendship over somebody getting so mad about Pride because they felt like Pride was leaving them out. So they bulldozed over, the LGBTQ plus community just to kind of prove their point that, oh, well, how inclusive is Pride if me, a cis heterosexual person, can't have a month of my own? It's like, okay, like that, like, it's an illogical question.
They get
Because
don't they get 11 months?
right. It's like, it's an illogical question because you have not dealt with the level of persecution and violence and erasure and minimization that this particular group of people has experienced.
Yeah.
And Pride is intended to at least bring a little visibility to them, to, in some way, try to level that playing field,
Yeah.
which we know is not always level. So to me, when people say that, it's just another extension of bigotry, because one function of bigotry is to do anything it does anything it can to minimize the experiences, survival stories of the LGBTQ plus community. Ooh, that makes me so mad. Validating intersections. So this is something that is very important, considering there are many people in the LGBTQ plus community who are multi-marginalized. And kind of like, I mean, we mentioned a minute ago, like Black trans elders, like that is a significant segment of our population that often gets overlooked. So drawing awareness and education regarding those intersections of marginalization is important. Queer sexy time, like that's a significant part of it too.
Ooh la la.
Ooh. It's a part of it too, and I think we live in a culture that's, of course, very. There are still a lot of entrails of Puritanism. So that is why, like, so many people get very uncomfortable with that reality. But that's why we're here. Like, that's why we're here.
No, we're here, we're queer, and we have sex.
RP says every month is straight Pride Parade. Yes, agreed. And then except June, they should be thankful they don't need one, right? And it's just interesting. Like, I feel like there would be. It takes so much energy to be that hateful, so why do it? Unless you're willfully doing it for a reason, right? So, but that is the graphic that we wanted to overview, and you're more than welcome to share it with people if you want, because I do think it's quite educational.
Yeah, I love that. It was a great graphic.
Thanks. So I think an interesting question that we have to pose is, being that it's 2024, what does it mean to be LGBTQ plus in 2024? What do current events say about the way we interact with the country and the world at large? Ooh, that's a very layered question, Ari.
I know. It's a good question. So, to me, I think that it's easy to have an identity in some places. I think that it's easy to be out, and that um, people are like, "Oh, you're not special because you have this identity." No, not necessarily, but um, there is also like this undercurrent of hateful rhetoric that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like inner society, like the "Don't Say Gay" bill, and this group of hateful sharks that are swarming in society, that they're not necessarily going to perform actions that are going to physically harm us, but they're doing things that are trying to um remove us from society. Doing
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know, they might perform actions, but they're definitely trying to legislate us out of society in certain ways. And there's definitely like a bias against us in society, and that there are subtle cues that certain people have opinions that we should not exist,
Yeah. No, and I
and that
think
we're not welcome in spaces.
yeah. And I think, like, building off that, like, I think that's an excellent answer to that question. I think another added caveat is that there are these very powerful, hateful, bigoted voices. And another layer to the issue is that there are a lot of bystanders who mean well, who are completely fine with the existence of LGBTQ plus people, but they just kind of witness these horrible things being done and said, and they just choose not to do anything, right? Maybe they don't know how to approach it. Maybe they don't know how to be an advocate or an ally. That's why, and not to do a shameless plug for organizations like PFLAG and so on and so forth, if you're not really sure how to support as an ally, there are resources out there for you at your disposal that you can use to educate yourself, prepare some tools to work with. So, like, if you are in one of those situations, you can be like, okay, here is somebody being transphobic, or hey, here's somebody who's being incredibly bigoted. How do I respond to this person? How do I show up for the LGBTQ plus people in my life? That way, they're not like in this situation just needlessly navigating somebody spewing a lot of awful rhetoric, right? Like, there are solutions out there and there are tools to use. It's what we do with them that matters. And I'm going to be completely blunt. Inaction is a significant choice, right? And the thing is, a lot of LGBTQ plus people, when we see inaction, that almost stings more than the bigotry that we're dealing with in that moment. It's just the cruel reality of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that can also be turned into a learning experience, right? And mind you, I'm not saying that everybody should be 120% an activist. That's not realistic. You got to consider your own bandwidth, your own mental health. But there are subtle ways to really show up and have that presence be meaningful without putting yourself in harm's way. And I think supporting those grassroots organizations is one of those methods.
it's just sometimes not speaking up does more harm than speaking up. And that's the thing is you just have to know, like, it's just, like, because I've been there where it wasn't with the LGBTQ plus community, but I remember watching some brutality taking place before,
Hmm.
with, it wasn't the police, it was a security guard being like hurting someone. And um I as a bystander, you feel like, that bystander syndrome gets to you, and it's like, you feel like you can't speak up or do anything, or that you're powerless, and you feel like
Yeah,
you get to that point of where, like, you don't ever want to be in that situation again where you're just a bystander for something.
yeah.
um
It can be very
I never
paralyzing.
ever want to be, you just don't want to ever be a bystander again, because it's sort of like, if something is happening, you want to be help somebody, and you don't want something to continue.
Yeah. I can really relate with that. Like I mean, I remember in high school, like I was bullied a lot, and I've mentioned that many times, but there were other people that I witnessed being bullied too, and there were instances where I didn't do anything about it or intervene in any way, whether it was about the fact that I was paralyzed with fear or, not wanting to engage because maybe I was afraid of myself getting bullied. Like, regardless, that still weighs on me because I was a bystander in that situation. And I don't know, how that type of thing may have impacted that person that might have been alleviated by just on somebody else in that setting being like, hey, what are you doing? Right. But that, like, if there are instances where we are ever bystanders, it's so important. Like in this conversation, like we're acknowledging that we learned from that experience, right?
Right.
Um, and I think that's a point that everybody should get at some point, or at least work toward achieving. So, how has Pride the last year treated you, or how has the year treated you since the last Pride? Have there been successes, failures? What are some things that you wish you had known about?
So since last year, I have become, I've had trouble, because the thing about it is it's so hard to be non-binary and to assert your identity without people being like, "Yeah, but you're actually a woman, right?" And like being like, "Well, I guess you could say that, I suppose, but like not really." And like
Hmm.
people are like, "You're just trying to be special, right? You're just trying to get attention, right? Like you're not actually like
Hmm.
really." And like, or like my parents being like, "I'll just always see you as a woman. Like that's just how I always see you. Like that's just how you are." And like, so it's sort of like, and like you get people like Demi Lovato who are like going back to changing their pronouns, or like going back to changing their identity to just being a woman, because it's so hard to assert your identity, and always having to explain to people, putting that emotional effort into explaining, like, no, this is really what I am. Like, and like,
Hmm.
because you don't appear androgynous, or you don't appear a certain way, and like
Yeah.
having to, so it's difficult.
I think you make a very salient point there, though. Like, I'm sorry that you've experienced that difficulty, but I think that, and this is, I think, going to be one of the important takeaways here, is that as an LGBTQ plus person, it shouldn't always be our job to do the educating or the explaining, right? Like, we are living in 2024. People absolutely have the capability and wherewithal to do research and to develop that understanding themselves without needing someone in the community to expend their energy, their bandwidth to kind of be like, all right, here is how the dots are connected, kind of a thing, you know? Because it does get very taxing, and that especially impacts the trans and non-binary communities. Um, and it just warrants a lot more reflection. I would say for me, my that would be my one big learning experience. My other learning experience of the last year, and I'm going to be actually doing a separate video kind of delving into this a little bit more concretely, but I've learned that when major life events happen and you are LGBTQ plus, like say you get engaged or married, anything that kind of like cements yourself your self identity, like there are going to be people uncomfortable with that at all points in your life, even
Oh,
when you aren't aware of the fact that those people might be uncomfortable. They
really?
will slowly drop away. Like I had a very good friend who is conservative, religious, but like we were really close, and after I got engaged, like they basically kind of just like dropped away. And
That's
essentially kind of
horrible.
yeah, so like and I've had frequent conversations with my therapist to be like, okay, like how do I unpack this? Because this was something that I had to navigate when I first came out, not 15, 20 years later, now that significant life events are happening, right? So, but I am going to be unpacking that in a whole nother video because it's a lot to unpack, but I think it's going to be an important conversation. So, what are some of your goals for this month's Pride? What do you want to accomplish as far as activism, awareness, joy, existence? What do you want to do?
Can I, before we get to that, can I just say, Donnie, your identity and your sexuality is valid,
Oh, thank you.
and that it doesn't matter how much time has passed, you are allowed to experience life events, and that you are valid.
Well, right back at you.
Thank you.
So, what are some of your goals for this month's Pride?
Um, so I want to learn about Victorian gays.
Victorian gays, woo!
I
We
want
had
to talk
like a
about
whole
Victorian gays.
soliloquy. We had a whole conversation about Victorian gays in the back room before the episode started, and it was very insightful. I'm excited.
I'm going to talk about Victorian gays this month.
Oh, RB says you are both valid and you matter. You too, RB. You too. And anybody else who watches this, you are valid and you matter. Um, some other goals. I'm gonna go to a couple of Pride events. Um, I really want to do some like reading of LGBTQ plus history a little bit more. I know we've been talking a lot about that. I want to kind of um I'm rereading my mentor's book, who was a gay activist. Ace London. His book is called "The Closet is Empty, but the Dining Room is Full," and I'm gonna reread that
Ooh,
because
I love it.
it's such a really so like his it's very much like an autobiography, and it like documents like his experiences, you know, growing up through like the 50s, 60s, 70s, finding a significant other, navigating the AIDS crisis, etc. And it's really moving. um and there's like a very interesting kind of like supernatural like undertone to everything that's discussed in the book too. So I
Nice.
think I'm gonna reread that. I tend to reread it every year during Pride Month, so
Can I just say your hair looks really nice today?
thank you.
So I was watching my local news station, and there was definitely like a gay guy on there, and he did not have very nice hair. Like his hair was like slicked back, and I was like, "Mom, why does the local gay guy like not have nice hair?" I said, "Why did they make him look like he's from the '70s or something?" She said, "They're trying to make him more palatable to straight people."
I mean, your mom might not be wrong about that. Might not be at all.
I said, "Oh, poor guy." He looked cute though. He just his hair looked a certain way.
Schlicked.
She said he looks very coiffed though.
Whenever people use coiffed as a descriptor, it's so funny to me. Oh my god. And there's a lot of hairspray in this hair that's keeping it the way it is right now. I probably am very flammable.
You
No
look
pun
like a boy
intended.
band. You look like a boy band.
Flammable, no pun intended.
You could
I
pass
look
for Adam Lambert.
What do you want from me? Oh my god. What do you want to learn about this year, and how do you want to be educated this year about the history? Well, we already talked a little bit about what we wanted, right? Are there any other aspects?
Um, so I want to I, so I want to learn kind of like how to be better advocate this year and like learn about like some of the issues that are going on with the movement this year because I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I've been kind of tuned out and then sort of
Same.
like what kind of things that the LGBTQ plus movement is like advocating for as far as like bills in Congress and things like that and things like to stay kind of to kind of get back into like this is what we're actively working for and this is what we're actively working on because I feel like I've been kind of like asleep and not paying attention to bills or petitions or
Mm-hmm.
things that I could be signing right now.
Yeah, no, I think that's an excellent thing to look into. And RP, yes, I have listened to it. I also think that well, one thing that I want to really do is start prioritizing looking at school board elections because I don't think a lot of people realize, but school board elections are probably some of the most, overlooked elections that impact the LGBTQ plus community most extensively. Because that regulates what's done in schools to protect LGBTQ plus, faculty, students, staff, etc. Also regarding like book banning, literature, all of that jazz as well. So since this is
It's
an election year, everybody definitely make sure that you're looking at the local school board elections.
it's
What
like
does
school board elections and like city councils.
Yes, absolutely. So like look into what those people's, stances are in various things. Like ask them questions. I really want to get more so into the habit of like emailing representation. And like kind of addressing things and trying to take a more active role in finding answers to those types of very important questions because I always mean to do so, but then I'm like, oh, I haven't, insert excuse. I think it's time to
Oh,
start
I
really
love
kind of.
emailing people. That's like my pride and joy. Like I'll just get on a computer and start typey and like be like, "Oh, I've got information about this issue." And I'll get like a form email back and be like, "Thanks for emailing me about this issue. Thanks for your stance about it. I will make sure to vote this way." And like this is how the representative feels about this issue and this is how they're going to vote in the upcoming vote that's coming up. And like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I put my opinion out there. Sometimes I used to call my congressman. I'd be like, do 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 do, and then be like, get like an aide, and be like, I have an opinion about this issue. Here's my opinion, and they'd be like, thank you for your opinion, and I'd be like, you're welcome, and they'd be like, I'll let them know, and I'd be like, thank you.
Oh my god, there is this TikToker that I follow. She's like very active when it comes to like calling representatives, and she has like entire templates of like what to say, how to say it, and I've used it a couple of times. I'm gonna have to find her link and share it in the description of this video. But like, if you ever are wanting to take an active role and you want to call your legislators, like that's a good way to do that. Like if you can find a form or template that kind of allows you to streamline what you want to say, super helpful, and it takes down the intimidation factor considerably. Because honestly, that's what discourages most people is it can be extremely intimidating, right?
No, I just
So
call them and be like, "Hey, what's up? You like nachos? I like nachos. Here's how I feel about gay people. You should do this. You should vote on this bill this way."
the nacho to gay people pipeline never has been so short. So here's the last question, and I think this is probably one of the most important ones. How will you stay peaceful in a world that is hateful? What is your game plan to stay safe and deal with the hateful comments this month?
I think you should answer this one because you definitely have the P flag experience.
So My plan is to grant myself the grace to not be able to fight every single battle I see, because it's humanly impossible to do so. And sometimes you really have to consciously choose where you invest your energy and what will be most productive. For example, instead of responding to every hate comment that I see under a news article Facebook comment section, my energy might be better used to, support local LGBTQ plus grassroots organizations, or educating, or, writing about the LGBTQ plus experience. Now, it's
Yeah.
not to say I do think that people who are hateful, they should be held accountable, and I think that their words need to be addressed. But as people in the LGBTQ plus community, it can't always be our job to do so because our bandwidth matters. So this is when it becomes important for allies to step up to the plate and
Get
work
your hateful
to-
cousin. Get your hateful
yeah,
cousin.
tell your hateful cousin that they are, not invited to the family dinner if they're going to be saying transphobic ridiculousness, right? Um, and if you don't have the tools and you want to become a better ally and you want to show up more, there are things out there. Check out PFlag. That's one of those good examples of things. So,
Also, the block button is your friend. Just saying.
best friend. Best
Best
friend.
friend.
It's okay to block. It's okay to
YouTube channel,
block.
hide user, best friend ever. You,
Uh,
you don't even have to interact with them. You can just hide user, and then they'll just be screaming into the void to
and you
themselves,
know what?
to the
If
universe.
you don't have the wherewithal to respond to a hater, or you choose your bandwidth over that hater, instead, use that energy and uplift an LGBTQ plus person. Give them a compliment.
I accept Cash App, Venmo, PayPal.
$20 to talk to me on Pride Month.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Oh, and me too. I love it though. Friends, at the end of the day, enjoy this month. Let it enrich you. We're going to be talking about, gay shit all month, and I'm pretty excited. So, know that we love you. Happy Pride. Be proud. Rainbow bright. And have a good rest of your night. Bye.
Bye.